So, welcome back to Cocktail Party Economic Conversations. We are going to be discussing the ideas in chapter 7 of the book Cocktail Party Economics called Demanding Clients. And our guest today is someone who went to Guelph, and I knew her well then and was a grad student in our program. So, Katherine Groome, and she's going to talk a little bit about the role that the idea of demand has in her job. So we're really glad to have you here. It's wonderful.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So yeah, hi Catherine. It's great. Thanks for coming. It's so you're working at Dare, and you got a great title, Demand Planner. I think my wife would love that title because she likes to demand that I do some stuff, and she likes to plan what she demands. So the whole title would be great if it was hers. So that's awesome. So yeah, we're just trying to some of our guests. We just want to get to kind of the narrative of your story and where you've come from starting at Guelph and then up to your present role, and sort of what's motivated you, what's inspired you to do what you do, and the type of work you do. And so it'd be great to hear what you do now, and how you've come from Guelph to this point. Yeah.
Okay, so I started at Guelph in economics, and I loved economics, and I thought I wanted to be a professor. And so I went as far as working on a PhD, but realized at that point that I didn't actually enjoy academia all that much, despite really liking, the subject. I didn't want to be an academic. So I ended up, I had some contacts at Dare and got a job as a sales analyst there, working with the sales team, which was very interesting. I'm sort of an introvert, and salespeople are kind of extroverted and charismatic. And I'm analytical, but as an analyst, the fit was pretty good. So I really enjoyed that, and I got to have a lot of experience with Dare's customers. And I should just clarify that at Dare, our customers are grocery stores and food service companies, not the end consumer. They're the sort of the middle point person who buys from us and then goes on to resell. So I learned a lot about our customers there. And then I went from there to a sales strategy and planning job, which I found I didn't enjoy too much. And from there, ended up going into supply chain, so into a demand planner role, and found that I really liked that. And in the demand planner role, I did a little bit of supply planning and a little bit of demand planning as the role in our company has evolved, because our company is sort of in a transition stage of trying to move from kind of a not so strong demand planning S&OP system to a better one. And now I'm in a purely demand planning role, which is great.
What is that? What is a demand planning role? What is it you plan?
So I work with a bunch of different people in the company, groups in the company, to try to come up with one number that we will work towards, as in we will plan to sell 1 million cookies, for example. And whether
what a
we
dream.
will actually
1 million cookies.
whether we'll actually sell that many cookies, I mean, probably not exactly the number that we picked, but that's what we're all going to work towards. We're going to produce that many, and we're going to promote the cookies as if we're going to be able to sell that many. And really, we're all just going to kind of work together to get to that much and not
Nice.
sell too much, because then we can't provide it,
Yeah.
and not sell too little, because then we're stuck with leftover cases and they go to clearance.
So your analytical skills. I was thinking, you know, analysts sometimes make amazing like superstars because, like, if you can, but Jack Ryan, he was an analyst, you know, for the CIA, and then he ended up being, you know, making a big impact. So it's a pretty interesting. Sometimes that analytical mind really makes an impact, right? So do you find that you're using some of that analytical skills that you had? Or?
For sure. So when I first started out, we didn't have any proper demand planning software, and we're implementing at the moment. So I spent pretty much all my time in Excel. And having strong Excel skills was very helpful. And a lot of what I did and do is looking at previous demand, so previous sales basically, and based on those previous sales, combined with leveraging my strong relationship with the sales team, talking to the sales team, trying to come up with what we will sell in the future.
So COVID, what did that do to you guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it messed up everybody. For us, you know, tons of impacts. But the first thing that it did was suddenly a massive spike in demand for pretty much everything, because, you know, people were panic buying. So just people, the grocery stores were empty, you know. I went to the grocery store one day and I looked, and the only thing of ours that was on the shelf were these kind of really specialty ones like Bread and Organic, that I guess you don't panic buy organic stuff.
All the organic people are calmer.
Maybe.
That's right. They don't have so much sugar in them. They just have. That's cool.
So
Yeah,
you basically sold. Everybody was worried. Okay, we're going to be locked down, and there won't be a cookie or cracker.
So initially, they panic bought, and we sold all out, and, you know, we couldn't produce fast enough. And then, so here's where strong, high demand, and then suddenly, or as people started to calm down, we started to see shifts in demand. So Bear Paws, which is our sort of most important brand, is a lunchbox kids cookie that is peanut free and portable, and so it's really geared at bringing into schools. So when schools closed down, people panic bought Bear Paws, but then after that, now there's very low demand for Bear Paws because no one's bringing them into the school. And suddenly people have shifted from, they used to, the market trend was going towards wanting out of home food. So portable, snackable, that sort of food, that was the trend. And then suddenly with COVID, everyone's at home. So now people want the like massive box of cookies that they can scarf while watching TV.
That's cool. Here, just put it in the living room and just get your own the buffet of cookies. That's pretty interesting.
They're buying in bulk because they don't need to have packages to take away in their lunch, or, you know, they can just keep the box in their cupboard, and it's cheaper by the box than it is in little packages.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, we and all our competitors have been shifting for years towards packaging that really works with this portable demand. And then suddenly now there's demand for a totally different packaging type. And it's not easy to shift between two different packaging types. So it's
right, because you have
really,
an assembly line.
Exactly.
Yeah. How long does it take you to get from, okay, we're going to do this, to it gets to a store?
So do what exactly?
How long does it take you to get up to speed? Like, you made a shift and now you have to put more boxes in that have no small packaging. How long does that take to make that transition?
Well, so If we are talking about a completely new production line, then that's minimum 2 years, maybe as much as 5 years. But that's a total new production line. If you're talking about getting just new packaging equipment in, you could probably do it maybe in a year, but certainly not in the 2 months that it took for demand to shift so radically.
Wow. So what did you do?
Well, I mean, we're just hurting on sales for Bear Paws, and luckily we do have bigger boxes of other things, but we're struggling. We're struggling with capacity on the products that people now want.
Like something they can shove underneath their mask easily, probably.
Yeah,
Or
what
eat
is
during
it?
good idea, eh? We'll talk after.
I'll suggest that to the R&D people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think sometimes when we talk about economic models and we're shifting demand curves, we make it all sound so instant when, we're in and we go from equilibrium to equilibrium really, in 1 second. And equilibrium to equilibrium in the real world is a little slower. Like, do you
Well,
have a lot of inventory? So you have a lot of markets where you have no inventory and other markets where you have a stockpile.
yeah, and where we'll have to be just slowing production. Recently, we invested in a very good Bear Paws line, which of course is a problem for us now. I hope that, they just announced in September schools will be back in. So I would be expecting to see an increase in demand again. Fingers crossed.
Yes, I'll cross for you. Yeah, wow. So how many lines would you have?
Oh goodness. I'm gonna have to count. 7, 8, 9, 10. Maybe 12 or 15 around there.
Okay, and you're all in the cookies and crackers. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, we have so cookies, crackers, fine breads, which are like Melba toast sort of things, and candy. And we also make Leslie Stowe, which is like a crisp with inclusions like raisins and nuts and stuff. And then also we just acquired a company called La Panzanella, which makes flatbreads.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's interesting. I was thinking about you and your role as a demand planner, how certain roles are in more demand now, right? Like I know some people are working like crazy in some organizations now all of a sudden, and other persons aren't doing as much because their skill is not as much in demand. Like I did some work with a large insurance company, and their IT department was swamped, and there was the stand-up trainers were having to shift, so they weren't doing much. They were trying to shift into different areas. So I just think it's interesting. Your skills probably were in high demand. People, Dara's probably counting on people like you to say, okay, help us predict what's going to happen, right? So it's kind of
Yeah,
fascinating.
I mean, yes, but at the same time, this is something that nobody can predict.
Right.
And I say that about September. We hope that that stuff picks up, that demand picks up for Bear Paws, but we need at least 5 weeks of lead time to increase production. I guess we're exactly at that mark now. They just announced schools going back. So I would say, okay, now we start ramping up production a little bit on Bear Paws in hopes that we do actually see it pick up again.
well, yeah, and especially if school becomes erratic. So say there's a breakout at a school, well, suddenly there's a shutdown again, right? So you have this situation where you have guesses. It's not a predictable guess. We have no idea.
Okay.
It's never easy to predict demand. But in a situation like this, it's nearly impossible because, a month from when school's open, they could all shut down again if we're in the second wave. So,
Right.
and suddenly we're stuck with this massive amount of product that we built because we assumed that there'd be lots of back to school volume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I was thinking about that the other day. I was looking at these stores that sell back to school supplies. And I know the second biggest event in the year after Christmas is back to school for retailers. You know, new clothes, new backpacks, new binders. And I mean, my older son, that was he loved that one more than Christmas. He loved back to school. He wanted new binders with everything new. And so, and I was thinking, I don't know what's going to happen this year. I guess now that they've announced back to school, kids will be getting new running shoes again and new clothes and new backpacks and pencil
I
crayons.
hated those commercials. As soon as I saw one, the first time I saw that in the summer, I went, back to
Well,
school.
my younger son is like you. He hated back to school. My older son thought, oh, he just loved Staples. It was like his
I like
favorite
Staples.
store. So I would imagine, people are gearing up for the fall. They're thinking, oh, I'm going to be really busy, so I'm going to stockpile some lunch food so I don't have to race out all the time. So they would do a little bulge maybe, but you're in a situation where who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, yeah, and like you said, back to school is a huge time for us. The only one that's bigger is Christmas.
Yes.
So
So back to school, they would stock up on that stuff then.
on Bear Paws for sure.
Okay. Wow.
It partially also, and this is something that's kind of makes my job harder, because cookies and really I think a lot of grocery products are very driven by price. So as soon as you put something on sale, the price or the demand for it skyrockets. And so in some ways we might be doing it to ourselves a little bit, that we have this back to school spike in demand because that's when we promote really hard. So
Oh, so you
suddenly
give better deals in
we give
back to
better deals at back to school because we think the demand is so high at back to school that
Mhm.
it's hard to pull out from that what is the actual demand versus how much is driven by the fact that we've lowered the price.
So change in quantity demanded versus change in demand. You really are trying to figure out how price sensitive is the client versus how there's a real shift in an event to
Mm-hmm.
this product. Very cool. So I know that's a hard concept because everybody uses demand to be both, and it's not, right? Dropping the price is not an increase in demand. It's an increase in the quantity demanded subject to a price change. But yeah, very.
Wow.
So, and you might be merging both of those in the same event. You have a shift happening and a movement along kind of in the same week of
Yeah, well,
September.
we're basically betting that there's a huge increased demand or it wouldn't make sense to lower our price, you know?
And you have a lot of, you have to have a lot of production ready to go.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm sure there's a lot of other industries in the same boat, right? The same thing, the demand at back to school, right?
Yeah. If I was making pens or
Yeah,
backpacks,
backpacks. Yeah,
how do you know how many to make?
yeah. And if there's an outbreak, you could have a warehouse full of backpacks, right?
Yeah.
Well, that seems to me like it would be a bit easier because now that we know that they're going back to school, everyone's going to buy a backpack. And then I'm assuming you don't buy more backpacks throughout the year.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Right.
Right.
so them shutting down is not as big a problem. Whereas with cookies, it's being consumed throughout the
Right.
year.
Right. Right. Right.
If
Okay. Yeah.
suddenly shut down, demand drops.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, I think having a job like a demand planner, are there a lot of your kind of jobs at all of these kind of consumer product type companies?
Yes, I think so. The bigger companies, it's really very important to have a good demand planning system in place.
Yeah.
because you know, without it, you can have such problems, you know. If you don't have enough product, obviously you're missing out on sales, which is bad, but also you're damaging your relationship with the customer, and the customer fines us for not being able to fulfill their order. And then on,
Oh.
yeah. And then on the other hand, if you made too much, and then you basically just have food going to waste.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because I know as a consumer, I can't think of any specific examples, but I remember thinking these people are wasting a huge opportunity, probably because of poor planning, right? Like, look at, I forget, I'm trying to think of an example, but I remember thinking it, like, as a consumer, thinking this business has made a mistake here because they haven't planned for this demand, you know, that was available. And then they just didn't have stuff that everyone was demanding. They're clamoring for something, but they didn't have it. I don't know if you can think of anything else, but I just remember thinking of this, right? How important to be to plan, right?
Well, it for sure happens, you know. If the company just makes a mistake planning, you know, they, or say they didn't plan for an important promotion.
Mhm.
Another thing that could happen is the customer sometimes, though usually they're very good about working with us on when they're going to have a promotion, meaning lower the price, have it go on sale. Sometimes they might forget to tell us. And then all of a sudden, there's a huge jump in demand because it's on sale and we weren't ready for it.
Yeah. You know, well, here's an example for me. I'm on the ketogenic diet, right? So it's come into popularity, right? And I go into one store, and I think they did a really good job of offering these products, right? And so I'm quite happy. Metro, I don't even know if I should mention the name, but anyways, I go into their store, and I think, oh, they already have it. But other stores have totally left the stuff out, like low carb, right? Foods. So I go into the pasta, I keep looking, where is something that's low carb? And I'm thinking, this is a wasted opportunity, because they probably don't understand that there's this market out there, that it's growing, that somebody isn't doing their research to realize there's people that want low carb food, right? And everything's targeted at the people who are concerned about fats, right? But that's kind of an old thing. There's this new wave, right? So I just think that's an example, I think, in my mind, because, right?
Well, it
Um,
also strikes me too that sometimes you go into stores, like, I mean, honestly, every time I was going to the store, it took 6 weeks to get yeast back in the store. Like, it was like yeast was gone, you know.
Mhm.
Then they were using rationing too, so which I thought was really good. I mean, you're only allowed to buy one bag of flour or one package of toilet paper because it was like completely gone. And they would resell, you know. I guess people weren't doing that with cookies. They weren't buying all the cookies to resell the cookies. But people were doing that with toilet paper, which I thought
Yeah.
was, which makes sense. Basically they're scalping, that's what they're doing, and they're making a profit on the difference. So that's why I thought rationing, which is not typically a market solution, was a good idea. Like, do you have a lot of times when you have promotions where they have limits? They'll say you can only buy this many.
no, not really, because we want them to buy more. Um, and if we've planned everything properly, you know, we're not running out.
Right.
With toilet paper, it makes sense, right? Because they couldn't adjust price. They had this huge spike in demand. Supply was fixed because, you know, toilet paper is probably produced in Thailand or something. I don't know. But they can't rapidly increase supply. Takes a while to get it over here. And grocery stores can't increase price, whether it's due to regulations or just because it would really be a stupid thing to do. It would piss off their customers. So with price being fixed, you have this in economics, we think, oh yeah, price will just adjust. And so obviously everything will be fine, equilibrium. But no, we end up with shortages.
Yeah, it's because they don't adjust their price. And that's why you need to move to a new mechanism called rationing. You're only allowed one or two. So I just want to say thanks. I think this is an interesting conversation, definitely an angle that most people wouldn't think of, having a company that thinks about demand predictions,
Yeah.
and that's so important.
It's a great
So
topic because we had like environmental person and somebody else, and
yeah.
then cookies. It's awesome to go, different variety of things. It's cool.
Yeah, so I think it's important. So anyway, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you taking